says I'm going live. Okay. Okay, hi. Is this so? I think we're live now. Is this everybody can so hi, I'm Dr. Wright. Um, it looks like we are broadcasting live on YouTube. Um, and I have with me today Leah Fowler. Leah Fowler has over 16 years of helping people get insurance coverage for all sorts of medical problems, including lipedema. And she is a ERISA expert and has helped innumerable people get um, insurance coverage through ERISA-based plans. And it can be, we're going to go into explaining a little bit about that, about, what ERISA is and what, but, and how insurance coverage really works. So it's a very important, very important and very one of the most frequently asked questions. So welcome, Leah.
Thanks, Dr. Wright. It's nice to do another video with you.
Yeah, so in my practice, more and more people are wanting to get insurance coverage. Not everybody can get insurance coverage. There are medical necessity criteria that many people don't meet. They're constantly changing the medical necessity criteria. But there's another issue, and that is in terms with insurance plans, and whether they have a plan coverage for this. And if you could just briefly discuss how insurance plans how they work and what they what actually is how coverage is actually determined by a plan.
Sure. What everybody should know is, first of all, if you want ERISA to handle your issues with your insurance, you have to have insurance through your employer. ERISA can't touch Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, CHAMPA, or workers' comp except in the state of Texas. So as long as your insurance is sponsored by your employer, chances are you're going to be able to receive assistance from ERISA if you need it. ERISA is a federal law. It's been around since 1974, and it is the ruling law when it comes to benefits determinations. And the summary plan description, the booklet you receive from your employer that tells you what's covered, what's not covered, how it's paid, etc. That is the ruling document according to the Supreme Court as far as how benefits are determined. So what I would recommend, first of all, if you're thinking about getting a lipedema diagnosis or you're considering getting a consultation at all, is to go through your booklet and look and see if lipedema treatment is a covered service. Now, this is where it gets tricky because some of these documents can be up to 500 pages. Some can be as small as 60 some pages. But there should be language in there that if it isn't a covered service or diagnosis, that you have to find that. And if it's not in there, then they would have to pay for it, because anything that's not covered has to be specifically stated in that book.
Yeah. So and that goes into that's a really important point, is a lot of times you'll call and you'll call your insurance company and they will tell you, this policy or that policy. Those are really those those people they're not looking at your ERISA document, and so they're usually wrong, whatever they're telling you, which is and they're and then they'll they'll be wrong both ways. Sometimes they'll tell you, well, if it's, considered medically necessary is all they'll tell you. And that's actually not true, because there may be plan restrictions or plan guarantees, and those are not, and they will never know that. You have to understand that they're not looking at the the actual legal contract for the insurance. So
Right. They're going off of their own internal policies, which again, they don't mean anything when it comes to ERISA-based plans. The ruling document is that benefits booklet. That's why it's so important for you to get that. And if you need somebody to go through it and outline everything, the important parts in that before you even see your provider, you can contact me and I'll do that for you. It's a nominal fee, but I will outline everything that's important. I will also tell you in that summary if you truly have coverage for lipedema, and if there's a gap exception in there or some other exception. They have a lot of names. So what I mean by gap exception is if there's no provider in your area who specializes in lipedema and the cosmetic surgery involved, like liposuction, abdominoplasty, things like that, then some plans include an exception that if you go to an out-of-network provider of these services, you will only have to pay the in-network portion of your insurance. So that's really important if that is in there or not.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes I've noticed in the plans I've been reviewing lately, there's a section called reconstructive surgery, which has been very helpful to me with these lipedema approvals for pre-auth once they've been denied, because in that section, it states that reconstructive surgery is not deemed cosmetic if it's to restore function or issues like that, and to treat an illness or disease. And I'm limited in my medical knowledge on this, and Dr. Wright can expound, but in my opinion, at least, lipedema is a disease.
Yeah, for sure. And we recently published. I was the lead author with Karen Herbst, helped me with this publication as well. That it does, the lipedema reduction does improve function and improves mobility, quality of life, and pain. And I'm very proud. This was the first publication to show that in these changes. It was also the first to on lipedema reduction surgery or lipedema surgery in the U.S. and so. But so yeah, it's not and that's important. It's not a cosmetic surgery. Now, some of the smaller lipedema ladies can get very good cosmetic results, but for not everybody, that's not the goal. Again, I'm just talking. So anybody, if you've joined us live, or we're gonna start opening up to questions. But if you could put into the chat or comments any questions you might have about insurance coverage, lipedema coverage, anything you really would want to ask Leah, who is our expert here, and or I'm happy to answer questions as well. If you just a little, while you're putting in your questions, I want to Leah has a Facebook page called ERISA Facts not fallacies. And she has Instagram is ERISA advocacy, and then she's it's okay to give out your email?
Sure.
Yeah. It's just Leah, Lea, Fowler, Fowler, and at
7-8. Yep.
78 at Gmail. And that's pretty easy to remember.
I
So,
do have some questions. Whenever you guys are ready, I can get started with them. But Leah, if you want to keep,
sure.
are you okay? Okay.
Yeah.
This was on Facebook. This patient said, I don't have an obvious ankle cuff, but I get lines where you can see the swelling. I would be considered overweight at 5 foot and about 140 pounds. I am worried about getting coverage and proving it's medically necessary despite having a letter of medical necessity. What are the best keywords to use, points to make if you can, evidence, etc.?
Wow, I love that question. Thank you for that question. So this is the thing is it's really tough right now. I mean, we've had people denied because they don't have ankle cuffs, and and that's just, I mean, it's really interesting. So uh uh the Dr. Roxon at Stanford, they just had a consensus on the diagnostic criteria, and we've published before about the diagnostic on the standard of care, and basically cuffs are not, I mean, they're helpful, but that does not, you can have many, even perhaps half of the people with lipedema do not have cuffs at their ankles or wrists. And so it is unfortunate that there's that that medical insurance policies and directors will sometimes insist on this, which is just wrong. There is no evidence that you have to have that for the diagnosis. And we're talking now more about like the elbow cuff that you see, or what I've called a knee lobule, but could be called a knee cuff. And so I don't know that maybe cuff's not the best word either, because I think what is the best word to describe that as well. But those are all things that they can be very, very critical of. And unfortunately, I have these discussions. We have patients that, we fight for their approvals, and we'll get denials, and then when I talk with the medical directors, they'll be, well, it didn't look like lipedema to me, or they didn't look as like whatever idea I had of lipedema. And that's very unfortunate, because there is a characteristic side, appearance of the disproportionate fat, but it's not like there's not some ideal kind of like you feel like you're in some beauty contest, and whatever that person's idea of a beautiful lipedema is versus another, and so their standards are different, and that's not fair, because there really is you really can't decide on lipedema via pictures. And I've done numerous webinars and presentations and various national and international meetings about how you cannot go by just the look of pictures for a diagnosis of lipedema.
And it's against ERISA regulations and I have run into this so much lately, where you have doctors who are doing medical reviews for medical necessity who are not specialized in the area. I've seen cardiologists, I've seen general MDs, I've seen any specialty, but even cosmetic surgeons doing these reviews. And you can't do that under ERISA. When it deals with medical necessity, you have to have somebody who specializes in that field doing these medical necessity reviews. RNs aren't qualified. So you have to have somebody who's specialized. And that's what a lot of people don't know. They get the denial, and a lot of providers don't know this either.
Right.
That you get that denial for medical necessity, and you're thinking that it's somebody that's familiar with your situation doing it, and they're not. They have no clue what lipedema is. And certainly an RN doesn't. So that's what you have to be aware of. Federal law states that they have to have those qualifications to do these reviews. Otherwise, they're not worth the paper it's written on.
So this comes to a point that I want to say, this is like, so Leah has been my secret weapon for my patients. And I've learned so much about how, my whole office has benefited from Leah's expertise and knowledge. And so, and she's helped us, get numerous her advice and counsel has helped us. Now we hire her to do that. Obviously she's a separate independent person, as a separate business, and follows all the best practices for businesses. And but so everybody, there's so many people who could benefit from her services, and I want to make sure people, while she's helped us, we pay her for her helping us. She also helps individuals who are who aren't. There's so many. I can only help such a small percentage of people with lipedema that need help. I mean, I'm really just a little drop in the bucket. And so more the need is great, and I'm so glad there's people like Leah who can help all these ladies that need help with their lipedema coverage.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of patients who have come to me that are going to other specialists.
Yeah.
So they get a hold of me on my Facebook group and ask me questions, and they hire me to do their appeals and things like that. And I'm more than happy to do that. I try to keep everything fair. So
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, I'm using, I have a large YouTube following, but it's really important that I want like this. I'm not the doctor for everybody. I couldn't even begin. The need is so much greater than what I can deliver. And I'm not the best doctor for everybody. There's certain people I routinely refer to colleagues who have different skill sets or different things. And so this is not, I just want to be sure that everybody, the rising tide lifts all boats. And so we want the tide to rise. Amanda, you have another question?
Yes, I do. Does your office help secure coverage? I have a PPO plan, but must stay within UHC network.
Yeah.
that's
So
strange. If you have a PPO plan, that usually covers out of network.
yeah, go ahead.
I can understand why you would want to stay in network, because obviously your portion of the bill is going to be smaller. But sometimes you want to go to an out-of-network provider if you're more comfortable and you think that they're going to provide the results that you want. So I'll leave it at that. But if you're looking for an in-network provider, all I can say really is do your research. And again, see what your summary plan description says about your coverage for lipedema.
So a couple things. Well, we are in network for the UHC plans, but you really, I mean, um, I have to say, there's very few that actually are, and it more and more, it can be very being in network. Some insurers want to pay their in-network physicians just incredibly unreasonably low. Um, we they want to pay a few $100s for the surgery, and you think, how can they do that? Well, they can. And if and the only way to actually um, get fair compensation is for some is to go out of network. Again, we are in network with UHC. So, Amanda.
Dr. Wright, we kind of talked about this in our meeting earlier. Has anyone succeeded in appealing the exclusion of compression garments as a covered benefit? I have UHC and secondary lymphedema in addition to lipedema.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that popped up on my Facebook group this morning. I wonder if that's the same person.
It is, yes, yes. They sent it over here.
Okay. Yeah, like I told them, again, I need to see what your summary plan description says. Because if it doesn't specifically exclude those compression garments, then they have to pay for them.
Well,
And what I don't understand is, I know this person that the insurance is covering other situations for them or equipment, but they're nagging about compression garments. I don't understand that. And like I said, my knowledge of the medical part of this is extremely limited. So I'm going to let Dr. Wright handle that part.
well, I mean, first of all, no, they don't. UHC does not cover compression garments, which is, I mean, that's their policy. So, I mean, it's possible you could bring, through appeals and stuff, get coverage, but it's very hard. That's a lot of work, and honestly, compression garments are a few $100s. And yeah, they're not cheap, but they're not. It's not often worth some of this. So it's hard. Our local DME will not bill insurance. Um, we sell compression in our office, and um, we're not set up to bill insurance. So it's complicated. They Yeah.
Like I said, if it's UHC's policy that they won't cover it, I'd like to see what the summary plan description says, because there again, the SPD is the ruling thing here, not the payer's internal guidelines. So I'm just curious what that has to say.
Okay. What is it called if you don't have an ERISA plan? My husband is employed through the federal government.
Well, there again, my philosophy has always been, when I'm doing ERISA appeals, if that summary plan description refers to ERISA in any way or says they follow the guidelines of ERISA in any way, when they normally would not fall under ERISA, then they're bound by it. So I don't know what part of the federal government this person's husband is employed by, but like I said, take a look at the document. See if it mentions ERISA anywhere in there. If it doesn't, then your next best bet, and I've done non-ERISA appeals. Actually, I've got one going right now in the state of North Carolina. Your next best bet, and what I use, is state law. If there's state law that's very friendly in addition to their plan document, I can still quote the plan document, their benefits there. But I also look and research state regulations as far as medical necessity review and things like that, because you'd be amazed. There's a lot of states that have in their language on their books that reviewers have to follow the same rules as in ERISA. They have to be board certified and licensed in that specialty, or, something along that nature, which could help with a non-ERISA plan.
Any more questions?
Okay, yeah, sorry. Let me see. Can you remind everyone what the Facebook group is again?
Yes. So, Leah, you wanna do your Facebook group?
Okay, it's called ERISA, ERISA, facts, not fallacies. We have over 300 members too. Yay.
If let's see, where did that go? If we get surgery with Dr. Wright, are Leah's services included?
Well, yes, yeah, right, yeah. We use I mean, I feel like this is I'm old school, and we always felt that the doctor doing the procedure should assist with obtaining insurance coverage. Now, there's some surgeons who you know actually don't. They basically will only take patients who have either paid other people to get approvals, or are paying cash. And so, but my office and helps people, and we consult with Leah. She helps us. I mean, she's a godsend, and yeah, and she's my secret weapon. And we're gonna use our secret weapon for any patient we can that we need to.
Okay, I got another one. Is Medicare finally seeing that lipedema is a medical necessity and needs to be covered when a patient has surgery?
So the problem with Medicare is that they have a strict prohibition for any cosmetic code. And right now, the only code used, first of all, the only code used for the procedure is a liposuction code, which is not actually accurate, or really does not is a poor substitute for what the lipedema reduction surgery, because so liposuction is by definition a cosmetic code. And so Medicare is it's constant, like, congressionally mandated to not cover it. I mean, I've heard that there are rare instances where people with some sort of Medicare uh, plan or Medicare thing have gotten coverage, but I'm telling you that it's not reliable, or not sporadic, and there's no way to know. Um, and if you go through an HMO, and they say they're gonna there's no benchmark for what they would pay or what they would cover, or so you could go through that and still end up not getting coverage. So unfortunately, at this point, Medicare has not seen the light, and so where that would come into play is we currently are getting an ICD-10, and we have talked with the venous and lymphatic medicine specialty, and the plastic surgery specialties have talked about getting a different CPT. Right now, there is not consensus on asking for a different CPT besides the cosmetic code. And I think that's a shame. Of course, I'm in favor for a separate code for the lipedema reduction surgery. But right now, for obvious for other reasons, The plastic surgeons do not want that.
Okay, I think I just might only have one more. I don't even know how to get diagnosed. I believe that I have most of the symptoms, but any doctor that I mention it to just blows me off because I am not overweight.
That's really unfortunate because, about 20, it depends on which studies, but a substantial portion of ladies with lipedema, 15, 20%, depending, will have, will be normal weight. And that yet they have still just as much pain, and it can be just as debilitating. And it's unfortunate. Um, but that's common. So as far as, I mean, you have to find someone who's actually an expert, or at least very familiar with lipedema before they could recognize it in its other than classic form.
Are there any more, Amanda?
Yes. Are you guys aware on anyone that's actively pushing for congressional protections for lipedema, like breast cancer?
I personally have posted the email addresses of every congressperson out there on my Facebook group. And I have told my members, email them every day, because you have to be part of the change. It's not going to change on its own. If we don't make these people aware of the situation that you're suffering through, they're not going to know about it. So you have to inundate them and make them aware. And then I'm also trying to work with some people to get a Protections Act in place. I said, whatever you need from me, I'm more than happy to volunteer and help get this through.
So I have a little more nuanced. Right now, our advocacy priorities are getting the ICD-10 code, um, then also securing training for experts in the field to training on lipedema in residencies, fellowships, medical schools. And this is, some of these are now, so the FDRS, the American Lipedema Association, has been working with that, and other lipedema awarenesses. But we are so far right now. We're just really getting we need more help and more assistance with getting in these advocacy efforts, and we don't really right now have, frankly, the manpower funding to work for a congressional act. I was part of the Lymphedema Treatment Act, and that was a great. I mean, that was literally 10 or 12 years we were working on that. I mean, it just it requires so much to get an act through Congress, and it's really quite, it can be done, but we have to get organized. We have to get much more participation, and so I'm all for that goal, and I would, but there's so much that we need to do, so much we need to do to get to where we can even start that.
I have a few more questions that kind of lump together of how do they find a specialist in their area, and is there documentation that medical professional can give to their patients about this disease?
Yeah, so the Lipedema Foundation has a great set of handouts that you can give to your provider about the disease. And that's at lipedema.org. That's how you can get there, and that's their website, and that'll and how do you find a specialist to do? Well, so this was originally described by vascular and venous lymphatic medicine, my my specialty, and they and there we still are the traditional experts in this. There is more awareness, more I mean, endocrinologists and other medical specialties are recognizing it, in primary care even, are recognizing it and diagnosing it, and they can get you started. The doctor has to be, familiar, and that's really, we're trying to do outreach to other doctors and make them more familiar and more comfortable diagnosing the condition and more comfortable treating it. It you shouldn't have to travel across the country to get a diagnosis and treatment. But right now, unfortunately, there are still quite a few people. There are there the the awareness is not as great as it should be, and recognition is not as great as in most medical specialists.
Okay, I have a few more rolling in. Are ERISA level appeals higher level appeals?
Yes, they are. I'm glad somebody asked that. The traditional method, providers and other people have always been trained on, is that, especially the in-networks, you can only appeal using the language in your contract. So they're not aware that ERISA can apply to even in-network situations. Out-of-network providers have never even known that they could appeal. They just figured they were out of luck. So, yeah, ERISA will apply to both equally, and I've used it very well over the 16 and a half years I've been doing this.
But so I have a question. So I think, so do they have to first do the submission through their insurer through the regular means, and then only after denial can they do the ERISA appeal? How does that work?
I would recommend, and in the case, let's take pre-authorization as an example, okay? Say your office submits the patient's packet for a pre-authorization and it comes back, we're not going to approve it. What I recommend is, instead of doing your normal appeal where you're arguing your medical facts against them, is that, see, ERISA is a strategy. Since there are specific requirements, you're better off using those specific requirements because it's their responsibility to show you a written and signed and dated medical review that they did to determine that this wasn't medically necessary. They have to supply you the reviewer's credentials and, in some cases, licensure in order to be able to do those reviews. So that's why you want to do ERISA appeals to start with, because you also get the employer involved. Here's the major difference. When you're doing a traditional appeal, you only appeal to the payer, which, pardon the expression, but you might as well go pound your head against a wall. You're going to get further. So when you do ERISA, you get the employer, who is the plan sponsor, involved, and make them aware that the insurance company is not following the rules in their plan document. Because a lot of times these employers will get involved and say, hey, my employee needs this. It says in my book that they are guaranteed it. Why aren't you doing this? So that's why ERISA appeals are better than traditional appeals. And I can tell you too, in 16 and a half years, I have yet to see a valid medical review. Written and documented, dated, signed. I haven't seen one.
Okay. If you've been denied on claims and exhausted internal appeals and are a plan protected by ERISA, are there still ERISA appeals available to you? If so, how many?
Yeah, you can do ERISA appeals. Again, what they're denying is your basic, what I call basic appeal. You're not citing any case law, which I do, things like that. So my services include up to 3 levels of appeal. If I already have the summary plan description, I use that in every single one of my appeals, and then I go back and forth with the payer. If I don't have the summary plan description up front, I can make the argument, request the summary plan description from the employer because I know I'm never going to get it from the payer. And once I get it, then I use the verbiage in the summary plan description against them. Now, there's a little problem here, though, that if your summary plan description very clearly states that you cannot have lipedema surgery, there's nothing I can do at that point. I'm not going to waste your time further. I'm going to be honest and upfront with you because I think you need to know what your options are at that point. But that I have only seen one thus far that very specifically in the exclusions section said that liposuction for treatment of lipedema is excluded. That's a first for me to have anything that specific in that section, but it is. So I want to make you aware of it. It's not a slam dunk. And I can be right 40 ways to home on, that they have to cover it. They're still going to say, no, we're not going to do it. At that point, I have a couple other options. I can file a complaint with the Department of Labor, who oversees all ERISA plans. Or I have a friend who's one of the best ERISA attorneys in the country. I've done pre-litigation work for him on a multi-million-dollar suit against UHC that was settled out of court. He still takes my calls. He still takes my emails. I've already talked to him about all you lipedema sufferers, and he is very interested. So he wants to keep me posted on what happens with these appeals and things of that nature, because he'd have to get his partners on board, but he thinks that you should have representation too if you want to take it that far.
What organization oversees ERISA? Is it Insurance Commissioner or Department of Labor?
The Department of Labor. Yeah, your state insurance commissioner is not really going to be effective for much of anything because they know, and I've talked to a few of them, they know that if it's an ERISA plan, that's federal law, not state law. So they know that they don't really have any jurisdiction there. Now, in the case of the non-ERISA plans, like I'm working with, yes, then I will get the state commissioner involved and go that route.
Right. Can our plan administrator employer ask for committee hearings if our carriers refuse to comply, but the employer is trying to do everything they can to comply?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the union plans have their own benefits trustees that make their own decisions. See, that would be a self-funded plan as opposed to a fully funded plan. Let me explain the difference. A self-funded plan is just exactly what it says. It's like a union where they make all the benefits determinations as far as coverage, things like that. Payers like UHC, Anthem, all they merely do is run the claims through, send out the checks. They make no benefits determinations whatsoever. And believe me, I've seen enough of them throw the employer under the bus on a response on an appeal saying, It's not our problem. Go after them. So if you have a fully funded plan, the problem is that then the payer makes all the decisions. But if you get the employer involved and they've got a high-powered insurance broker that sold them this plan in the first place, they don't want that broker ticked off because you know what? Come renewal time, that broker can recommend somebody else's plan to this employer. So it's always a good thing to get the employer involved, even if they don't have a lot of clout. But yeah, in answer to the question, if you have an internal group that will listen to appeals, like I said, when I do ERISA appeals, it always gets addressed to the plan administrator / legal department at the employer. And then I also appeal to the payer because I get more results from the employer. And 90% of the time, they didn't even know there was a problem.
It looks like that's all the questions that have come in right now.
Well, I have some that came in off of Samantha's Lift Up Lipedema group, and she passed them along to me. So I'm just going to read those off, and I think quite a few of them are more for Dr. Wright than me, but we're going to get them out there. So Grandma Joe 4 asks, I'm 80 years old. Can I have the surgery? What is the age you would no longer have surgery?
So that comes up pretty frequently. I mean, so I have done people in their 80s, but that's really, they not your typical 80-year-old it's probably too old, but there are some 80-year-olds that are in really good health, that, are still don't have any serious medical problems. Then, they're they're candidates for the surgery. But it's so there's not the number of years per se is not it, but the overall health of someone. So yeah.
Marvel Universe is expanding asks, can you ask about the fat graft on buttocks, for instance? Is it okay?
So that's kind of controversial. I mean, I know there are, so we, there's a potential that, the lipedema fat transferred to another area could create lipedema there. And but it's not. There are people in. I have transferred some lipedema fat into breasts a couple times, but I caution everybody that we really don't know, and so I don't think we're until we know more about the biology of lipedema. I think everybody should be a little cautious about that.
The same party asked also, what about to use daily collagen and protein powder? Is it okay for us to use?
Yeah, I think, protein powder and collagen can be part of a healthy lifestyle.
And GL Jang's 1 asked, what about Medicare? I think we pretty much, you covered that. Medicare unfortunately won't do anything right now as far as coverage. Philly Company or Philly Co. says Kaiser says lipedema isn't a recognized thing. Where to go from there? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't. I mean, that's hard to. I mean, that's just. I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, of
That's
course
what
it
I'm
is.
trying to come up with.
I mean, I don't know. There's it's a true disease. I mean, it's biologically different than it's a lipomatosis that is biologically different from normal fat. It really has a characteristic. I mean, it's a well described, actually, well, fairly well researched now, entity. So I'm not sure. I just that's just that's
That blows my mind.
well, it's just kind of. I mean, it's just, but that's obstinate. I feel like I mean, Kaiser's just waiting for a lawsuit for that because that's though. So that we went through this. This was stuff, 10 years ago. The battle was for insurers and payers to recognize this, and that really, and they law. There was courts, there were ERISA lawsuits that they went to court and they lost. All the insurers lost about their denial or recognition of this or cut for coverage of this. But I mean, there's obviously still some that have not either, have chosen still to act that way. But
Well, Kaiser's a completely different animal too. I've fought that. I had 7 ASCs in California. I've fought Kaiser on a regular basis, but my thoughts on it would be, let me see your summary plan description. Because Kaiser can say that all they want, but if it's in that plan document, they have to recognize it, whether they like it or not. That's the only thing I can come up with. Engineer underscore Emily asks, insurance won't even cover my Entree Plus device. How will they ever cover surgery? I don't even know what that device is.
So that's a pneumatic compression pump, that's used for lipedema and lymphedema. And yeah, I mean there's um, I mean insurance covers less and less. I mean, let's be honest, they and so they uh, but just because they're stingy on one end doesn't mean they are stingy on everything. But as a general rule, insurance premiums cost more. They've shifted more of the cost to patients, and they cover less. They cover less treatments and less percentage of the treatments, and um, that's the reality. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality.
And I keep harping on it, but again, it comes down to what is in your plan document. If your plan document says the surgery is covered, they have to cover it. That's federal law. And D. Lawson 72 asks, any experience with Cigna covering Dr. Amron? I don't personally do anything with Dr. Amron yet. I'll preface by saying that. If his patients come to me on their own through the Facebook group, I don't know who they are or who they're not. Honest to God, on my Facebook group, unless you tell me you're working with a certain doctor, I have no clue. I just want to help you. I'll get that out there. Cigna in general. Again, it comes back to your plan document. Anybody, UHC, Cigna, Anthem, Humana, any of them, it comes back to what's in your document. So it's not so much the doctor themselves, it's what's in that plan document. That's where you have to start. You have to see what's in there, and then you can go from there.
I do have
Any
more.
thoughts from you, Dr. Wright?
No. I mean, Cigna's a weird duck. They're very, uh, they're usually employer sponsored plans that they are just administered by Cigna. So it's really variable, for their coverages and their plans are very variable. I they do for some, and so they may cover it for you, and there's a chance they might not. So
I do have a few more questions that are coming in on the live.
Sure.
I don't have insurance through an employer, but through my state, covered California. However, I have a PPO. I am guessing it wouldn't be covered and appealing wouldn't work.
There again, you're going to have a benefits booklet regardless, even if it's not an ERISA plan, even if it's through the states give out their employees benefits booklets. That's, just how it is. Everybody gives out a benefits booklet to their employees so they know what their health plan covers, what it doesn't. I've done New York State employees. I'm currently doing a North Carolina state employee. While it's not ERISA, it still has language in there as to what's covered, what's not covered. And this particular plan in North Carolina stated that lipedema surgery is covered, both in network and out of the network. And the out of network is covered at any facility. Doesn't matter if it's hospital, doesn't matter if it's in office, doesn't matter if it's at an ambulatory surgery center. So
yeah,
there again, and I can use state law like I did with that case. North Carolina has some very good state laws as far as how to deal with Blue of North Carolina's lovely little implied restrictions against services being done anywhere but at a hospital. That's a load of bull.
I want to add in there that this is something that actually the patients, the employed individual has to request this plan document. Those are not available to Leah or myself without you, the insured, or if it's through your spouse. They have to ask for this summary plan. Now they should provide it, and they may have provided it, but if you don't know where it is, then you have to ask your HR or whoever handles the benefits in whatever organization you're from to get those the plan documents.
And they have to, by law, give them to you, because if they don't, after 30 days, a penalty of $110 a day applies. And I've seen that penalty leveled twice. Once to the tune of $56,000.
I feel like this is a good question. Where should we look in our plan document to see if lipedema surgery is covered? Surgical section, outpatient surgery, medically necessary surgery?
It can be in a number of locations. And if you want to try and find this on your own, I commend you. But I've reviewed thousands of summary plan descriptions over the years. I can do it quick and I can do it easy and save you a lot of grief, but it's up to you. If you don't want to pay my fee, that's fine. You would look for it in the surgery section. It could be a number of places, okay? So I'm going to give you a list. It could be in the surgery section. If it's not covered, it should be in the exclusions section. It might also be in a section called reconstructive surgery. It could be in a section called exclusion, or I mean, not exclusions, exceptions, I'm sorry, exceptions. So there's a number of areas that it could be found in.
Okay. Leah, can we use your services before we even start the process? Are you available for that kind of thing so that it's personalized to me and my insurance?
Sure. I do summary plan description reviews. I've been doing a lot of them lately. My fee is $100. You send me a copy of your summary plan description in PDF form. Now we're talking prior to pre-authorization, right? So at that point, all I would need is a copy of your summary plan description. And then I will return it to you bookmarked along with a Word doc that lines out each page that's relevant. So that way you not only have a record for yourself, but you can make a copy of that Word doc and take it into whatever provider you want to go have your services done. And that's going to give their pre-authorization department so much ammo. It's not even funny to get the pre-auth done. Now, if you get the pre-authorization denial back, if you're doing this on your own, I'll put it that way. If you get the pre-authorization denial back, at that point, since I have already done your SPD, my fee for up to 3 levels of appeal for pre-authorization is $300. So you would give me the denial from the insurance company along with any accompanying documentation. Like if you get lucky enough to get a medical review, which boy, I would love to see. Things of that nature. I would need that at that point, but to just start off with me to see if you have coverage, how it works, the whole 9 yards, it's $100.
Yeah. I just want to say that if I, in my dream world, everybody would do that, because, that, I mean, you're, it's, if you have that knowledge, you'll know whether you have in network, out of network, what kind of benefits you really have, whether you have exclusions or whether you have coverage. And that's really the best way, to, and then you also know, then you can choose. I mean, I think everybody should have, that kind of knowledge before they get into, choosing people.
I have a Word doc list of steps if you are thinking about going and getting diagnosed for lipedema or any of the associated diseases, DIRCMs, whatever. That Word doc is on my Facebook group. It's available for anybody who wants it. And it lists the steps. So no charge. It's a freebie on me. There's also some educational videos on there about how to read and understand your explanation of benefits, what medical necessity coverage entails, how to fight it, stuff like that. So yeah, you just ask permission. There are some admission questions that you have to answer, and then we'll approve you, or if we don't, we'll explain why, and go from there. But I would recommend at least getting your SPD reviewed. So like I said, you help your provider out. They have the knowledge that they need to get your pre-authorization done. Wow, we made it to 1 o'clock, doctor.
I know. This has been great.
It's been fun. I love this kind of stuff. I would love to maybe, if I can next year, maybe give a little talk at FDRS or something. I'm jazzed on this stuff now.
Yeah. So again, we're going to put Leah's contact information in the link for this video. It's going to be posted on our YouTube, and thank you everybody for your attention, and thank you, Leah, so much for your sharing this. Yeah, I hope this helps anybody who's struggling with getting insurance coverage for their lipedema.
I hope so too. I'm not doing this to get rich. I don't want to take advantage of people. I just want to help them.
Yeah, same. Any final questions or anything else you want to say, Amanda? Anything?
Nope, I think everyone's just saying thank you. This has been so helpful.
Oh.
All righty.
All right, everybody, we're signing off. Yeah, thanks for your attention, and wishing everybody a happy 4th of July. Have some enjoy these nice days. Hopefully have some time with your family.
Happy belated birthday, Dr. Wright.
Thank you.
I saw the post.
I'm ending the call now.